Hello everyone, welcome back to Naomi's Bookshelf. We're going to talk about Elizabeth today by J. Randy Taraborrelli. So Elizabeth was my pick for the Fierce Women's Book Club. This one's about Elizabeth Taylor, and I picked it because, first of all, I heard she had chronic migraines, which it didn't really talk about in here, but it also talks about the fact that she had many chronic illnesses like several other ones. She also had chronic substance abuse problems, and she was just really having a hard time of life. She can come off as very entitled, and I will get into why I do not feel so bad about reading her book. And I did overall enjoy this one. Now I will tell you why I struggled rating this book and overall what I think. Now I'm going to apologize right now in advance for the AC being on in the background. It does make a mess of my quality of sound. However, it is the hottest couple days, maybe even week of where I live, breaking heat records. So we're having AC on. I'm sorry, I can't do it without it. So let's get into what I thought of Elizabeth, and I'm gonna put this book down because it's a bit big one. Actually, before we do that, we're gonna talk about why this was so big and the audiobook is so short. So I found this one at a used bookstore, but first I purchased the ebook and I was trying to read it, but I just physically couldn't. My brain just wasn't able to cope. So I found the audiobook on a very friendly platform that we're all on right now. And I didn't feel bad about that because I had supported the publisher by purchasing the ebook brand new. And when I had done that, I was listening to the ebook or listening to the audiobook and then reading along physically with the ebook at times. I was like, why is this so different in length? It doesn't make sense. And I realized that several sections were cut out. If you didn't know, this book is 470 pages long without acknowledgments, and the audiobook is 6 hours and 14 minutes, and the audiobook claims to be unabridged. That is a lie. This book is so much more in detail. I have not read it because I did listen to the audiobook. However, I want to go back and listen to or read it physically because the audiobook was not enough. So this one, you're missing a lot of good stuff when you decide to go there. I want to give an example quickly of what kind of things are missed in the audiobook. So in the audiobook, it does talk about when her last husband and she divorced. In the end, Elizabeth did love Larry and decided to just work it out with him. They settled for more than $1 million. In November of 1996, they were officially divorced. That's where the audiobook ends. The book actually continues on. It says in the book, though the two are still friendly today. The audiobook cut out things like that. So it showed things that really were in depth with her personality, but it also cut out things that I noticed were like fully in-depth chapters about her parenting, fully in-depth things about her other relationships. It was just where the audiobook was a lot lackluster. It was a good audiobook. It's not that the audiobook is a bad thing. It was just that it was wrongly labeled and it should have been labeled as abridged. So people know that they're not getting the full story of Elizabeth Taylor when they're listening to that. And I think that's wrong. Also, when I was listening to it, I discovered the last 4 minutes of it is actually an interview with the author and not like 4 more minutes of the book, because I'm like, well, why would you do that instead of just having more time of the actual book? I was a little disappointed. So anyways, that was my annoyed spiel. So when it came to a rating, I gave the audiobook 3 stars and I'm giving this book 4 stars. So I'm giving it 4 stars officially on like Goodreads, but 3 stars for the audiobook because I felt like it missed out on a lot of important information, which I don't always have now because I did listen to the audiobook for most of the reading experience. So something of interesting note is that Elizabeth was raised by an actress who decided that her daughter would be famous as well. So when she started raising Elizabeth, Elizabeth was instantly brought up into this household of fame. And so this idea of potential fame. So she was kind of raised to be this potential star. She had all of these ideas of future success put pushed onto her. And so she was never really given the time or ability to be a real little child. People would always refer to her as being a little lady because like she was always acting like it. She was taught to curtsy, I think it was, at a certain age. Like 2 years old, she was curtsying perfectly. It was just very sad for me to read because of being a childcare provider, I know that those are your most informative years. And so she was taught from that young age to be a performer. And of course, that carried through her entire life of being a performer and never understanding why she couldn't turn it off. Like she always performing, and that always was going to impact her decisions. I feel like obviously that's a big part of her, and it was very much influenced from her mother when she was 2. It just is that way. Also, I think it's interesting of note that her mom was a Christian Scientist, and they personally believed that you had to pray over everything, and if you didn't pray for it, you couldn't be healed. And so with all of her chronic illnesses, or if she ever got a cold, they would never take medicine, like Tylenol, anything. You would always have to pray over it. So with this being a book club about chronic illness, I personally at least looked at it through that lens. And when I read that, it was so disheartening because I believe that medicine is there to help you. And whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in whatever God you believe in, like we have medicine to help us. And she was not allowed to take medicine unless her father put his foot down and went out and bought medicine. And even then, that medicine was mostly used for him. So it's just so sad to me that a child, because I was a child with chronic illness, chronic pain for like my entire childhood, all the way now, obviously. But I feel like that's just so wrong. So wrong to be like, no, we're not giving you pain medication. We're not giving you Tylenol because you have a headache. That's just so wrong, in my opinion. And we have like you weaponizing your faith over it because you have to pray harder before you can be given that freedom. So it was just something I was really sad to read about. Another thing about her childhood is that they were living in England and then they moved to America when Francis got a job offer to work and like run his own art gallery, who is Elizabeth's father. And so he took it. However, Elizabeth's mother decidedly made Elizabeth a movie star at that point, and that kind of took the trajectory of Elizabeth's life. I feel like Elizabeth only saw one side of marriage, which was her parents' marriage when she was home, but she was mostly filming movies. And so when she was home, she probably only saw the one side of marriage where her father just didn't care. And also her mother was very much invested time with other people. So their marriage wasn't a very strong one, at least from what we saw in the book. This is all painted through the book's eyes. So let me just clarify that too. And so when it came to her marrying 9 times, it's just, I think it was 9 times, or was it 8 times? Anyways, when it came to her having all those marriages, I think it's reasonable to say that she did not have a normal childhood. She never had a normal life, and she didn't understand how relationships work. I also think it's reasonable to say that when she actually said that she didn't know how to like not marry the guys she was dating, because after Richard Burton, or was it, no, the Warner guy, she ended up having to go into drug rehabilitation. And when she was there, she realized that she does not have to marry every guy that she dates. And she almost had married 2 more men. But then she married 1 more man who they were married for 5 more years, and she broke it off with him. However, that's the last quote I read about. That was her last husband. She never remarried. And I think that shows that she's not an awful person for marrying that many times. I think it just shows that she was treated as a child to get what she wanted. She was like, I want to be an actress. And her mom's like, okay, let's do this. And then she did whatever she wanted. but also she was told that, you know, your opinions don't really matter. And I think that she portrayed that onto others. So when she was thinking of other marriages and other people, she didn't care, because she had been told through people's actions and through people's words that, you know, when you are 16, 17, or even younger, and you're making all these movies, we don't care that you don't want to make movies. You have to. And she didn't want to, but she had to. And therefore, your opinion doesn't matter. And then when suddenly she's old enough to make her opinion matter, she can do that to other people. So what does that teach your child? I think that's why she just did what she wanted. But then also, when she was able to have what she wanted, the world was at her fingertips. You know, when it was like, I want to work with this studio, and then they're like, okay, sure. Or I want to make a movie with Richard. Okay, sure. I want to do this. Yeah, okay. Like, there was literally nothing that could stop her. I want to have a baby who's very seriously ill. Okay, sure, we'll find you one. And I think she was a wonderful mother. Don't get me wrong. I think she did a great job raising her children, who she obviously struggled with her own mother. And I think she definitely decided to avoid those relationships that she had with her mother, because the book talked about how, and this is of course audiobook, because I don't know all the stories, because I definitely saw some things in the physical book and I'm like, oh, I wish I was reading this physically. But the audiobook talked about how some of her favorite points in filming Cleopatra were how when her children were present and they would go and have lunch and they'd talk about the kids and what the kids were interested in and things like that. So I think she was genuinely a good mom. I think she loved her kids. And obviously the children had attachment issues when it came to men, because who wouldn't when you're having a father, like so many different father figures. However, she cared about her kids so much, and she clearly did not push them into any specific fields. She did her best to do whatever she could for them, but at the same time, when you're a famous actress, there is a certain thing where you have to go and film videos, or movies, you have to go film movies all the time, you have to go do press release, you have to do all these things. And Elizabeth Taylor was raised to be this movie making machine. I mean, I don't know what else to say it. She was a movie making machine, and she was raised that way by her mother. So I think it's just something that is sad that she just was that way, but I think she really moved beyond that with her children. But at the same time, when she is that machine of making movies, you also have to acknowledge that that does impact her time with her children. But the time with her children was well spent. And I think, so when she adopted that baby from Germany, she really loved that baby. She loved Maria. She took care of her. But at the same time, as I'm saying, you know, she was able to be like, I want to adopt a baby, because at that time she couldn't have any more children. I want to adopt a baby who's very ill. I want to adopt a baby who doesn't have any chance of like really, you know, having a normal life, and doing all I can for them. And then she's like, okay. She did. And it was like, nothing in life can stop her. If she wants something, she gets it. If it just happens to be another woman's husband, okay. Like, that's just, it's just the way it looks. And that wasn't too many times, but it was enough times, you know? So it's just, yeah. I did find the chapters about her therapy fascinating, because those were, I think, really interesting, of her like self-discovery and her actually embracing what happened to her, and, you know, self-worth and all of that. And then I think it was very interesting about her determination of, you know, working with AIDS and working with people to go into that charity and really work on AIDS as an epidemic, as she says. And it was very big and problematic, so she was refusing to let people ignore AIDS anymore. I think it was very interesting that she just jumped in there and actually ended up being something of value to her, and something that took her away from her own self-importance, maybe is the word. I think it definitely was worth her spending so much time on, obviously for so many reasons of just health, but because she was able to see outside of herself, and also because that happened right before or right after Richard Burton died. I think it was right before. She was able to still be outside of the Richard Burton death and be happy about his memories, but also be sad about his death, but also move on. She was not stuck in there because she had purpose. And I think that was really impactful for her and really powerful for her. So she was able to use her purpose to help so many people and raise millions of dollars. And she finally found something good to do with her fame and notoriety, essentially. I think it was really, really ingenious that she was able to push people to do things that they didn't want to do because she was Liz Taylor. She was able to do things that no one was like, no, I don't want to do this. It's an icky subject. When we give to cancer, we don't give to AIDS. And it's like, no, that's not the way things are going to work. I'm Liz Taylor. I'm Elizabeth Taylor. You're going to give to AIDS. You're going to come to my charity thing and we're going to do this. And I think that she's just so stubborn and so determined that because, like I said, she gets what she wants. No one's going to tell her no. So why are you going to tell her no? And then when one of their community passed away from AIDS in Hollywood, it really brought to light that this is actually something to be looked at and helped with. And Elizabeth Taylor had suddenly all the help she needed, but she was not going to give up that fight. And I think that showed her determination and her strength. And I've said it before, not on this channel, I've said it before in person, and I'll say it again. I don't pity her. I don't want to be her. I pity her because of how she was raised and how she spent her formative years, and then how she was treated like a movie-making machine. I think she was just developed into this monster who can take what she wants, gets what she wants all the time, no matter what. And suddenly, here you have a woman who has so many husbands and people are making a monster in the press, and who is just being vilified on tabloids and by paparazzi. And I think that just does something to your psyche, especially when you're 20 years old or 15 years old, these different things. So I don't blame her. I don't blame her. I do blame her for her choices, because her choices are her choices. However, the way she was raised, the way she was designed by movie theaters to do these things, not her fault. So yeah, not her fault. And obviously she lived to be very successful. In this book, she is still alive when it was published, which I think was 2007. And she died in, I think, 2011, 4 years after it was published. So she lived a very long life up until the age of 79. I don't know how many movies she published, made, but she definitely was someone the world should know. And I think she just, there's pictures in here that are gorgeous of, her just being kind of exploited and just being, famous and with all her husbands and different things. And I think it was interesting because also I've read an autobiography of Carrie Fisher, and her mom was Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher was her father, and they talked about here being this little scandalous thing. And it was interesting because I've read that or read it about Carrie Fisher, so I might have to pick up a Debbie Reynolds autobiography as well. So yeah, it was an interesting idea. But these are my thoughts on Elizabeth by J. Randy Taraborrelli, about Elizabeth Taylor for the Fierce Women's Book Club. Our next one is about Harriet Tubman. I think it's called The Road to Freedom. And I will leave a Goodreads link of it down below in the description box, and I hope that you join us for the next one. We do have a Discord now going on, so if you want to join the Discord, I will put the Discord link down below. Melina does run the Discord, so you can always message her or go find out from her videos if you wanted to join our Discord there. So it'll be lots of fun to talk about Harriet Tubman there. I'm very excited to read about that fantastic woman and what she did while having her chronic illness, and it'll be a great read for July and for August. So please let me know down in the comments if you've read about Elizabeth Taylor, either this book or another one, or if you've watched an Elizabeth Taylor and what's your favorite movie that Elizabeth Taylor was in. Also, if you could like this video if you enjoyed it, and if you would subscribe if you are new here, I would really appreciate it. If you would like to see more content from me, I have many videos that are singular reviews, some for the Fierce Women's Book Club and some for other books, but I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye for now.